excuse me, I hope I didn't mess you up. I just quickly.
Can you hear me out there? It has been a really, really long time since we have done this. So, yeah, this is new. So, welcome. If you're on, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, how is everybody tonight? December 9th, 2023. Wow, it's been a long, well, it's actually flown by time. It is amazing to me how in some ways I hear from you that it feels like a long year. Other times I hear it's gone by so fast. So anyway, wherever you are in the world, I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you got on. Can everyone hear me okay? I guess that's the other thing. I'm trying out some new equipment and a new setting here. So if for any reason you can't hear me, let me know. But I'm assuming you can hear me. Okay, good, good. I heard you can hear me and you can see me. So all right. Feel free to use the chat. I always love hearing where you're from and where you are. So let's start there. Anyone want to jump on who's live? I know a lot of you will be joining me on the recording. If you're live, jump on and tell me where you are joining us from, where in the world you are. I always love hearing from you. If we're going to be, yeah, quiet, then that's fine too. We're going to start with your questions because you came in and asked me a bunch of stuff. Really good questions, too. So we're going to start with the first one here. All right. So my first one, and this has come up a lot on my calls, but the way that this was posed was a really good question. And so I'm going to take it from here and then I'm going to expand on it. Should love be free? Should love be free? Someone was asking, is it reasonable for a partner to expect full self-sufficiency in all areas, financial, emotional, family? Basically, we're talking about a really equal, equitable partnership, which is different from what some of us have been used to. And so it's a great question. I had someone else who asked a similar thing, but I'm using this one because essentially that's it. What I want to say about that is you're going to figure out those dynamics with your partner. The assumption that love should be free is a really loaded one. This has to do with where you're at in life. This has to do with who you and your partner are. This has to do with what your partner or the person that you're considering making your partner. This has to do with mindsets. This has to do with a lot of programming. This has a lot to do with experience, what has happened in the past. This particular situation has more to do with what someone has experienced and where they are at now. So in terms of how free is it? Does it have to be completely equal? Do you have to contribute equally? Is there then the experience of the expectation that you should be able to contribute equally the same? How much of this is a keeping score? How much of this is it has to work for both of you? How much of this is the reality of how someone maybe has been burned in the past? These are all things that are communication markers. These are things that if you cannot communicate about what the meaning of these things are, then you have a bigger problem than just whether or not this has to be fully equal and equitable in every single area: emotional, family, financial. We are no longer always in a place where the man pays for everything. We are no longer in the same place where everyone has the same expectations around traditional values. Where you find out if you are with someone who you are truly compatible with or not are through asking and sorting out these types of things. And so this is one of the reasons why this question is such a great one, because this question means communication is necessary. If someone has an expectation that the relationship is going to look a certain way and it doesn't, or if you're both on two different pages and you don't even realize it until the difficult topics come up, then this is what reveals that you are a match, that this is going to work, that you're going to be able to sort things out, that there's enough fundamental values that are similar that the two of you are going to be able to iron out any details of this. So instead of essentially asking someone else their opinion, what this is a sign about is the two of you need to come together and sort out what your own answers are and what your needs are regarding this. Because if you are on two different pages right here on things like equity, on things like power, on things like expectations, if this is where you are at and you're both on a different page, you need to resolve that. And you need to make sure that you can communicate. If this is a showstopper because you cannot communicate on something as essential to the relationship as should love be free, are we just loving here, or are there inherent expectations based on whether it's societal programming, based on past experiences, based on whatever? But if you cannot communicate on these subjects, if you cannot talk about them, that's a problem. So the idea that there is a right or wrong answer, there is your answer and there is his answer. If you feel very strongly that your answer is clear and you know exactly what you feel, and you're not going to change that fundamentally based on the fact that you really like this guy, because that rarely works out. If you think you can change a value that you have inherently held on to, there's a lot there's a lot more that goes on than just changing that because everything else works for some guy. You're gonna have some real resistance within yourself to change something that you're changing for someone else. So this is something about dialogue. Even what I just said, that needs to come up in the equation. That needs to come up in the conversation. There needs to be a dialogue to sort out what that means. And then there needs to be a willingness on both of your parts to understand that if these things cannot be ironed out, if these things cannot be discussed, if you do not have the ability to have differing opinions where you can talk about them and where you can come to a understanding of what to do with differences, or whether to evaluate if there is enough positive, then I know this stuff is not the fun stuff at all, but this is so necessary. And if you cannot talk about these fundamental value oriented issues, there's going to be so many more of these. And unless you are just living in the let's have fun, let's not talk about anything that creates any difficulties, that creates any possible tension, you're really going to struggle with this. You're going to struggle with the relationship. So what I honestly say on this is, when something comes up enough that you're asking me about it or someone else about it, and when you are not sure, I don't think it is that you are not sure. I think you have some strong opinions, probably. I think we all have some strong opinions on how we feel about these things. And I think that needs to be what we listen to, is there is something coming up for me that I need to talk about, that is a value that I have that is being that is coming up because of this conversation, and it is going to be something that maybe you don't want to talk about, but this is something that needs to come up. If it is there, and if you're thinking about it and you're needing to know, is it right or wrong? Because that's really what we want to know. Is it right? Is it okay? Is it right? And so when you need to know that, you need to know from your partner where the two of you are going to land on this. And so that means you need to talk about it. Okay. So Yeah, that was a really great question. I had another woman just related to this on a call recently. And she was saying she doesn't feel like she measures up. She doesn't make enough money. She doesn't have the same professional background. She's not as educated. There's all these things. And so she was questioning whether or not there are any men left who want someone like that. And so, or who are okay with being the ones who primarily cover things financially, or primarily the ones who have they're the higher earner. They have the inequities that happen in a relationship like that. And so she was saying, and basically what she was saying is, am I worth anything? Is there some guy out there? Is there still a man who will value what I have to offer? And so what I talked to her about, and so what I want to bring up, because I do hear this, where as things change and as we become more equal, essentially, in the way that society views that, and what is acceptable now, it becomes more of an expectation now. So it really depends on who you are with. It really depends on that, because you're going to be with some people. There are some places in the country, in the US, there's some places that are more traditional, value wise. There's generalizations, but then there's individual deviances from that. So, and then around the world, there's different cultures. There's all kinds of different considerations. But really, what it comes down to more than anything else are the two individuals involved. And so, if your partner is someone who is not on the same page as you, that matters. So it is not a blanket. There are not men who are still the more traditional role, who still are looking for that. But and so those inequities are not as clearly defined. You will bring other gifts, other positives, other things that are your strengths, and he will bring his. I mean, that's normally how these relationships have gone. And traditionally, this has been more of a model, and this is changing, but it's only changing as much as it's changing for the two of you. And so this is related in that you need to figure out, by first of all getting clear yourself on who are you here, and what are you comfortable with, and what do you need, and what feels like the healthiest relationship for you. Because with someone who is more of the one who covers everything and pays for everything and has the very traditional role, as it has been defined, with that comes a price that you may also find yourself not necessarily wanting to agree to, where you feel lesser than, you feel inferior. You don't want that. So again, all of these things, they're not these blanket statements of, I don't, is this still relevant anymore? It's, is this still relevant in this particular relationship? And is this still relevant with the two of you? And that's what it comes down to. Is this relevant in this conversation as you're figuring it out and talking about it? Does this work? So it way more than a blanket answer, because you can find any number of people who will side with you and say, yes, this should be the way it is. But if it isn't working, if this is not how it is in your relationship, then it does not work. Okay. And that's what I really want to convey, is it only works as much as it works for two people who are negotiating this relationship, who are communicating, hopefully in a way that feels much less like negotiations than it does just understanding each other and hearing where each other is coming from. But that is what matters. And so that is the most important thing here to figure out. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that answers that one. I'm going to get to the next one here. This one is, how do you know if you are settling for safe or in a secure relationship? Okay. So I know where this came from, and I'm assuming that what you are asking here is, how do you know if you're settling? Basically, if you think what you've got is a safe relationship. So basically, if it hits the hallmarks of more of the things that make you feel safe and secure, but if it really isn't safe and secure, if you're settling for safe, but it doesn't really bring the security of your heart, and it really doesn't bring what you are looking for in the long term, and it just satisfies a few of those safety points. So whether that be in terms of emotional safety, whether that be in terms of physical safety, whether it fulfills societal, I'm with someone. I mean, how often does that come in? I fit now. I belong, because belonging is a really big thing. And so the idea of settling. So I'm going to say this: settling. You always have to decide what you are settling for. And if something feels like you're negotiating a settling for something that you really need, and in this case, if it is the security that you're getting, and so it feels like you're secure and safe, but you are not feeling like you're being true to yourself, and you're not feeling like you are actually in something that you signed up for, that you want to be in for a long time. And if this feels like a temporary safety measure until you find someone else, then this is about your values. And this is about what you are valuing right now. And if you are valuing the safety and security that you're getting in a relationship, and if it is not the ideal relationship that you want to be in, but it is close enough for now, then for now, you've made your choice. And so my best advice, whenever you are making a choice that you're not completely clear on, but you are realizing that this is where you're at, and right now this is safety to you, is to look at the factors that make you feel safe. And so if you can create those in any other way, if you can create that safety for yourself in any other way except in a relationship with the person that you're in, then that is something worth looking into. So are there other ways to get your needs met? Are there other ways? Because if you are essentially in something for whatever those things are, but the rest of the relationship is not satisfying, or the rest of the relationship is not what you're looking for, then it has a indefinite time frame here of how long. It's got an expiration date on it, because you cannot continue indefinitely for forever with someone who you are feeling that there might be some real deficits in this, and you're not sure where to make them up. So what it comes down to is, can you find the things that you are getting there in any other areas of your life? Can you figure out a way to meet those needs yourself so that you are more equal? I think a lot of these things go back to equal. And if we're with someone who brings to us a sense of equality, because then we feel like we have someone filling in an area that we do not feel that we have an equal standing on, then we're in a relationship that isn't necessarily an equal one. And so we feel inferior, we feel something lacking, and then we have to figure out, is that enough to stay in it? Is there enough caring for someone? Is there enough love for someone? Is there enough feeling for someone? Or is it more a relationship that is more about trade-offs, where, and again, they're essentially negotiations. There's things that when there is love and there's, I think this is actually, these questions are a real sign of maturity, because they're not just about what to do with someone who is leading you on, or who is not available to you in some way. They're not just about that. They're about a deeper realization that when you get into real relationships, there is a deeper place after that, where you consider what the relationship actually is about, and who both of you are, and what you both bring, and the reality that they are relationships that involve reality, and they're relationships that involve a lot of things, a lot of past experiences, a lot of programming, a lot of the way things should look. And so that's something to consider with all of these. How are you going to continue on in this and be true to yourself? And is the reward, are the benefits of being in this relationship? Because I guarantee you, this person is probably weighing these things too. And so, is this something that needs to be looked at and ironed out? But essentially, um, that's something we all have to come to terms with. We all have to recognize what is happening and whether or not we're in this. Um, to get those needs met that they meet, and whether or not there's more than that isn't met, and the value and weighing all of this. And at the end of the day, I mean, I think if we're all friends to begin with, if we're in a relationship with someone who we can genuinely say we have a friendship with, there is a relationship beyond just the romantic at this stage, then we need to be able to communicate, and we should be able to communicate. And if there isn't the ability to communicate these things, or we get shut down when we communicate, and we just get a brick wall when we try to communicate, the issue is communication. And the issue is not necessarily about all of these things. The issue is that you've got someone who it is really hard to communicate with. And so, does that matter? Does that mean we need to figure this out and go from there? Or does it mean that this is something where we can continue with the status quo? I mean, settling, there's so much to say about settling. And so I would encourage you to not think of it as much as settling, and think of it as you've obviously chosen for some reasons, and just decide if those reasons still exist the way that they did when you chose this person. And then you look at, what does it mean to be in a committed relationship? What obligations are there? What assumptions are there? It sounds like conversations are really hard, but it sounds like some reality checks first within yourself, and some conversations within yourself need to happen first. And then you can go on and have a conversation with someone once you are clear. You can have a conversation about things, but these are tricky things to walk through, and they're not easy. Okay. Next question I've got is from, okay, here we go. This is from someone who asked a question. Someone who's hasn't been dating for a long time. Okay. So they write, I know things have drastically changed during the time that I haven't been in the dating world. I've had lots of downtime while he did his thing. It was always about him. To learn more about myself, my past traumas and triggers needing healing, and most importantly, have been learning how to truly love myself. Thanks to you, you've been a godsend. Not a day has gone by since the pandemic I haven't listened to podcasts each day from you and other dating and life coaches, lifesavers. Here's my question. For someone like me who has done and continues to do much needed work on myself, this is their question, how do I get back out there? How do I get back out there and not fall into the traps I've fallen into with past experiences? Really good question. I've learned a lot about the law of attraction. I'm mindful of my thoughts and feelings throughout the day. I don't think I'm going to attract the same as in the past, but I still have the fear that I might. I've honestly and transparently recognized how I've always stepped aside and accepted any behaviors that guys have offered me. So I've been seen as accepting casual, even when I vocalized that I don't. And then eventually all I got was crumbs. It's easy for stronger personalities to criticize that. And it's another thing to offer helpful advice, which you always have. And I thank you for that. Now that I've learned to sit with those feelings at times and work through them, I feel I'm ready to move forward. But I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to do that. Okay. So essentially, you're starting new, you're starting out there. You don't want casual. You communicate you don't want casual, but then you're concerned that you do come across as accepting the crumbs and accepting the casual. Okay. And so, yeah, you understand your pattern. So I think the biggest thing to ask yourself first before you're out there, absolutely, is what are my bare minimum expectations? Because I think to know yourself, to know what you need, what are the bare minimum that I need? Because the bare minimum, we're always going to go beneath that unless we have a bare minimum, unless we know. So based on now, what is one good thing? You've got a rich number of examples of behaviors that you've had in the past of what it feels like to get crumbs. So what you're asking yourself is what essentially will I not accept now? Like what is the so the bare minimum? Yeah. And also what am I going to accept now? What am I, where am I at? And so the more clear you are, because in my experience, I firmly believe that our biggest thing is we don't know what we will accept and won't accept. It just, we because we start out being, okay, I want this and this and this, but if you don't know if you do not know what your bare minimum expectations, that the behaviors that you know have to look a certain way, if you don't know what those behaviors are, then you are not going to know what to do when you get less than that. If you don't know what you will and you will not accept, then you are open season on whatever and whoever shows up. And so yes, it is what you attract. Yes, it is what you put out there. And yes, there's so much to that. So the most important thing is for you to have a firm, clear understanding on what it is that you consider to be bad behaviors, what it is you consider to be the absolute bare minimum of what you will accept. So basically things like the weekend. Okay. There's a woman I was just talking to on a call, and she was talking about they had made plans for the weekend, and when would she hear from him? And she thought, well, should I hear from him on Friday for the weekend? I mean, bare minimum is, honestly, if you have not heard on Thursday for the weekend, unless the two of you already have agreed, either officially or unofficially, because you have developed a pattern like that. There's been a pattern where he's a last minute guy, and that doesn't reflect on the type of relationship it is that you're a last minute priority. I don't know, work circumstances, whatever it is, unless there is a clear reason that you hear from this person who is excited about you at the last minute. I mean, you want to hear on Thursday. Thursday's like the cutoff, because Friday is the weekend. And so you need to be making plans. You need to be getting things ready so that you have got backup plans here, so that you understand what a weekend looks like. So I think the first thing is, like, what does it mean to prioritize a relationship? I would start there, because what does that mean? Do you understand? I think a lot of us don't understand what it means to prioritize a relationship. What does that mean, to prioritize a relationship? What does it mean when someone prioritizes you? What does that even mean? I think we've been so used to bad behaviors, we don't know what that means. So what does that mean to prioritize you? I think get clear on that first, because that is going to be one of the most important things that you come to, is what does that look like? How is that prioritized? Okay. Okay. So the next question is, why do guys do a slow fade? Why not just end it? All right. Why do guys do a slow fade? Why don't they just end it? Well, they don't end it because they are still keeping their options open. Now, particularly over online dating. And I am actually now, over the past few years, I have seen such a shift in online dating that if you're not doing online dating right, and that's not to put a performance fix on you, but if you do not have the disposition for that, if you don't have the personality for that, then if you don't have the stomach for online dating, and how much of a just a smorgasbord to choose from it is for men, and if you are not, if you can't stomach essentially online dating and the number of players that are on there, and then the number of times that you are going to feel like it is such a shot to your self-esteem and self-confidence by getting nothing back, or getting let on, or getting whatever happens, then online dating is something that you need to take a break from, because it is just, what happens is when you stay on there and you keep getting behaviors like that, it's just, what it does to your self-esteem and your self-confidence is not worth it. You come off of there, come back into the in real life scene, and focus more on things that you're doing, hobbies and other interests outside of dating, and things you would do, just focusing on what do you enjoy doing, and what would someone who's compatible with you be doing with you, and where would you be meeting someone, and where would you, just more in real life things that bring you out into the real world, because there's way too many men who are just finding it open season, and it just, online dating to them means, how many women can I talk to at one time? How many women can I keep basically on the back burner in case this one doesn't materialize the way I thought it was going to look, or in case there's something that's not that I don't like. I mean, it has a feeling like that. And so staying on there when you have gotten just guy after guy that has just dealt you a blow to your self-esteem, and you're just feeling like you that there's something wrong with you. The trigger is the warning is that if you start feeling like there's something wrong with you, then it is time to go offline, because all you're going to do is just reinforce that now. And so come offline, come back into the real world, come back to where we meet people who are prospective friends, where we're thinking first of relationships in terms of friendships and acquaintances and companionship and like-minded social interactions, that type of thing. Come back away from the whole romance and all of that, because there is just too much that is going on online that is just going to just discourage you. And I have just seen way too many women who are completely burnt out, but feeling so stuck in this place of, there is something wrong with me. And I want you to come out of that, because the reason why men do a slow fade is because, one, there's many options. Two, they know that if they find someone else, they want to keep those options open. But if no one is quite as good as you, which most of the time they're not, then they want to know that they still have you on the line there. They want to know that you're still there. So it is more because they are not sure than it is that there is anything wrong with you. And what that means is that they are going to be not openly communicating this with you. They're going to have reasons and excuses, and we're going to buy into those reasons. We're going to buy into those excuses. And so that's what ends up happening. And it just, it's too much. The question to ask is someone dating with the purpose of finding someone, or is someone dating just to get their ego fed, just to date, just to know that they still got it, and they can still find these women, or that they can still attract these women, and they can still keep these women hanging on. And we don't want that. You don't want to be part of that. So if someone is treating you poorly, if someone is treating you like they are stringing you along, they are doing the slow fade, you rarely hear from them anymore, there's clearly a difference in the communication compared to what it was. If all of that is happening, then it is up to you to make a decision. And they are waiting for you, to be clear. They are waiting for you to do their work, for you to do their work for them. And so you need to come in and you need to say, okay, this is not working for me. I am looking for more than this. And so if you are not there, if you're not, clearly what I'm seeing is this, then you need to move on from there. Now, the alternative to saying those things out loud and having an actual conversation about it, the alternative to that is you just go do that. You just go do that. You just move on with your life, and don't feel guilty, and don't feel bad, and don't feel like you owe this person something. Because that's the other thing, is that a woman will go do this and will feel like we owe someone something, or we're not being honest with them. But really, all of the actions that you've got this guy showing you are that he's doing the same thing. And so why is there such a double standard? Because that's only because you're more ethical, and you have more of a conscience, and you care more, and you feel bad, but he's essentially doing the same thing. So in that case where you notice this fading, this pulling away, this change and everything else, it is because this guy is keeping you hanging on, and it's because it serves him. It does not serve you. It does not do anything for you. And so the most important thing that you can do is recognize that and make the decision that you need to make for you, because that is what he is waiting for. And he will put this on you because it's not in his best interest to end it. It's not in his best interest to walk away from you. You're a great catch and you know it. So if he's walking away, there's a reason. He's not doing it except in a really gradual way. And it's because he wants to keep his options open and he wants to keep you. So you have to decide, do I want to be there for that or not? Because I don't think you want to be there for that. I don't think you want to be someone's low priority and someone's hanging around just using you, keeping you in the background. I don't know. I mean, maybe you do, right? I mean, this is something to honestly look at. If you're not that priority, can you be okay with it? You know, can you be okay with that? And honestly, can you, you know, or is this going to kill your self-esteem and make you feel bad and make you feel worthless and that there's something wrong with you? And then, you know, it's something you have to weigh. And again, the focus is on bringing up your self-esteem. The focus is on focusing on you and doing things that you need to do to make yourself feel better about yourself. Because really, the more healthier version of yourself, and I don't mean a whole lot of work, honestly, all this work that we end up doing on ourselves, the best thing that you can do is just go live your life and just go live, but live in a way that isn't waiting. Waiting living is not living. Waiting living is painful and slow and awful. It's the living that is what you want to be doing. So the easiest thing to do, in fact, the thing that is way more powerful than even all the work you can do on yourself is actually taking action and being out there doing things that make you feel alive, that make you feel special, that make you feel good about yourself. If all you're doing is waiting for someone to decide that he's coming back or to decide that you're worth it, that sends a message, a really clear message that I'm not worth it and I don't matter. And there's nothing that I've got to offer. I mean, that's a horrible place to be in. So what we're focusing on is getting out of that place. And once you get out of that place where you feel that way, everything will be easier to see. It's going from black and white to color when you go from there. So focus on, how do you not feel bad about yourself anymore? How do you not feel like there's something wrong with you anymore? And then whatever you need to do about some guy, it becomes that much more clear. Okay. So that's what I say on that. We understand why they do the slow fade, the pulling away. It's in their best interest. It serves them. But does it serve you? Does it serve you? All right. Now my next question. I left this one. This is the last one I'm going to do of the questions that I've got. And then I'm going to see if anyone who's live on here has anything. And then there's a few thoughts I want to say before we wrap up. But this question is about, how do I get him back? How do I get him back? And this is a big one. I probably get one email a day on how do I get him back? This one adds, how do I get him back even if he's moved on? Okay. So it is really, really difficult when you are in this place. I want to acknowledge that, because when you're in there, you can't think clearly. The stuff that I'm going to say to you, which is, okay, so focus more on yourself. Focus more on not waiting, but living. Focus on, because energetically, there is something that happens with the energy. When you know who you are, and when you know what you deserve, and when you feel good about yourself, and when you feel like, okay, maybe it isn't the worst thing that this guy dumped me, or that he moved on, or whatever happened. Maybe it isn't the worst thing, because maybe this allows me to see a whole other path that I wasn't able to see before, right? So there's an energy that comes with that is just so attractive. But the problem with that is that if you have that energy, it is a really difficult thing to actually feel, because what we usually really feel is awful. I mean, we feel bad. We feel We don't feel that that it's a blessing in disguise. We don't feel that we dodged a bullet. We just feel like we want this person back. But what I want you to understand is that the reason why you want someone back that badly, you can call it trauma bonded. You can call it whatever, irrational. You can call it, you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it a trauma, a response to a familiar dynamic in a relationship. You can call it something similar to when you pursued your parent who you relied on, and you were never good enough for them, and so you chased after the parent or caregiver, and so you're chasing after them. We can go all back into the psychology of it, and we can do that. But the most important thing to recognize that is happening here is just that, without getting into all that, without going down all those rabbit holes, because you can find all the information to fix yourself and figure that out and know where it comes from and everything. But if in the moment, if you do not actually act on that, then all this work you're going to do on yourself is only going to bring you to an understanding of it, but it is not going to do enough in terms of actual action. And the action that's necessary here is essentially to let that person go. And that is the hardest thing to do. I've been there so many times, so I understand this. Your mind does not compute that you are going to ever be able to let this person go, because this person is, because of who they represent, because they represent to you someone in your life who you need for your very life. Like, you need this person so strongly that if you lose this person for good, if they're lost in the ether and you cannot get them back, then you will never be okay. You will never be the same again. You will never be able to live properly without this person. And so this is the hardest thing, is the way that our mind takes this person who has represented such a close image to this, whoever else it was that we lost after we tried so hard. So in our minds, this is like death. This is like, it's over, it's done. And so reassuring yourself that this is not the case, reassuring yourself that you're still alive, that you can live with this person, that you can put one foot in front of the other and you can move on, is everything. Because the number one way to get this person back is to let go. There is nothing that communicates a more powerful energy of attractiveness as there is when you make a conscious decision to let that person go. Now, that is scary, because if you let them go and they're not in your mind, then all of a sudden they're gone. And what you feel in that case is that you are lost. You are completely lost. You don't know which end is up, because now you have let go. You no longer have any way to try to maneuver this, to try to make this happen and come back. But actually what you have done is you've created the only way it ever happens. If you let go, there is something of them. The two of you have been attached before, obviously. And so there is something about letting go that allows there to be a new energy that comes into play that replaces the old energy, which is why he left in the first place, because that old energy is something that obviously he didn't want any more of. And that's not on you. We take these things way too personally. This is a guy who was done. I mean, let's face it. A guy does not want anything. A guy doesn't want drama. A guy does not want, and usually he's the one causing the drama, okay? But he wants someone who is going to make life really easy for him. He doesn't want any heaviness. He doesn't want any of that. He wants it easy. If you're not making it easy for him, then if he's not someone who understands what a real relationship is, that it isn't always easy, then this is a guy who is going to go somewhere else for something that is easier. And so this is where you let him go and you live in a way that would be a way that you can feel good about yourself. Because I'll tell you, everything stems from not feeling good about ourselves. Everything stems from that. And so if you're not feeling good about yourself because you've been rejected by this guy, and then there was a guy before that and all these other ones, and you're just feeling like, what is wrong with me? There is nothing wrong with you, but you have been with people who have made you feel like there is something wrong with you, and they are just not a good match. So the key is to go back and find a better match with someone else. It will feel like death. Again, I'm not underestimating, because I know I've heard you describe these things and I've felt it myself. I mean, it feels like there's a death. It feels like you're dying when you let go of someone. But the reason why you let go, and you can't do this without support, but the reason why you let go of someone is so that you can see what is actually there, and you let go so that you will be able to tell what is actually there. Is there something? I mean, it's a cliche thing. If you love someone, let them go. If they come back, if it was meant to be. If they don't, it never was meant to be. So that is something you need to figure out. Was it meant to be? And it will be, to be clear, it will be because you have two people on the same page who want it to be. It's not some magical thing that it is and it's meant to be. It's meant to be because both of you want it to be. Okay? And that's it. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, but it is so hard, and we want to hang on tighter, and we don't want to let go. And just know, I mean, part of it is you feel like if I let go, if he's no longer right here in my thoughts, in my mind, constantly playing over and over and over again, then that's scary, because it feels then like you have lost him, even if he's only up here. Okay, but the thing is, we have to let go in order to get someone back, and that is the surest way to get him back. If he's coming back, because he will pick up on that. The number of times that energy work has shown that, and the number of times that I have seen that, I've even seen on a call with someone how they have had such a shift in their energy, and it is that moment that the ex calls, when they're in that place, because it's a magical place when you connect with the part of you that has value and has worth without a guy, without someone else externally. There is something magical that happens to get someone back, and that's how it happens. So that's the key, is seeing it there. I think I missed one here, so I'm gonna say this one real quick. Moving on from being ghosted. Okay, so that's a topic someone wrote in. I'd like to hear more about moving on from being ghosted and the why of it. Okay. So the why of moving on. Whew. Okay, so if you're ghosted, again, this comes back to worth, and this is related. And so when someone ghosts you, and I just talked to a woman yesterday, same thing. She's just feeling horrible about herself because she's got one other guy. It's again, right? She's putting herself out there, and she keeps feeling that she has got something wrong with her, because these guys keep ghosting her. She gets a match. She thinks there's some potential with someone. She's excited. And so she reaches out, and nothing, nothing comes back. Whatever she gets nothing. So the point being on this one is that we take all of this way too personally. The more you put yourself out there, the more you risk getting rejected, because you are not a match for that audience. You put yourself out there, and whoever some algorithm has matched you up with on a dating app, or whoever you have lives in your locale, if it's something to do with a matchmaker or something like that, or whatever it is, or the meetups that you're involved with, whatever it is. So you put yourself out there. You are putting yourself out there, and you are subjecting yourself to rejection. That is just a reality piece. And we have this idea that no one is, or we just take it really personally. And so it isn't personal. It is never personal. It's just a part of this process of putting ourselves out there. If there's, it's a numbers game in so many ways. And so if you have a smaller pool to draw from, and you are not getting that many, then it is just more representative of the fact that it's a small pool. If you put yourself into the big waters and you get more, you have more of a chance of getting less of those rejections, because there are more men to choose from. But again, how much are these men actually compatible with you? So the biggest thing is, again, I said this at the beginning, if you don't have the stomach for online dating, it's a great way to add on more men into the pool, more potential partners into the pool. But if you don't have the stomach for it, if you cannot see it, more along the lines of the way that someone who actually can do this as more of a game, as more of a numbers game, you can't do it. You will hurt your self-esteem. You will do a number on your self-confidence. It will be much harder. So you've got to do more of in-person meeting. And that is along the lines of thinking about, this was another question. I don't have time to go into too much detail, but if you want to know how to meet men, you want to meet more people who are more like you, and this goes for friendships, this goes for all kinds of things, because we're lonely right now. There's a lot of lack of community. There's a lot of loneliness, especially going into wintertime, especially going into the holidays, all of that. We're lonely. So if you cannot stomach the online, then don't put yourself through that, because it doesn't get better, it gets worse. And instead what you want to do is you want to go and you want to figure out if someone is compatible with you, what are the types of things that person is doing that you're also enjoying doing? What are the things where you're both compatible on? What are those things? And then both of you go out and do those things, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to meet each other through these mutual things. So go and or get involved in things like that. And the majority of these things really come from following your own interests and following your own heart with a mind to, okay, well, if there is someone I would want to meet, what types of things is he going to be involved in, and thinking about it that way, so that it's a mutual thing where you have an interest and it's also something that he could be interested in too. I really think that is so key, with just common interests in things, and really that will make it easier in the long run, especially things that are value oriented. If there's any causes that you're into, if you're into things that have a real heart to them, you're much more likely to meet someone with that kind of heart if you are doing those things and they're doing those things, and it's just more of a natural match. So focus on things like that, because those things are going to be natural weeder outers, because you're going to have some heart in there, and heart and just more of more than, I mean, if you like basketball or hockey or football or whatever, I mean, sure, you can focus on all those. You can, sports is, you'll meet a lot of men if you focus on those things to do with sports. Are they men your heart is actually going to be compatible with, right? So it's that balance. And I hope you get that analogy of, it's not just those things. It's finding things that you're actually interested in as well. It can't just be something for a guy. Okay. All right. So that's it for those. If anyone has any questions who is here live on the chat, you can just type your question in there and I will answer it. And then the other thing I want to cover real quick, I don't know how many of you follow Taylor Swift, although she's all over the news generally and all over social media. But I wanted to say something on that, because when I first noticed her and Travis Kelce, and they were making headlines, and I was seeing they had the little outfits that were really cute, the way they had kind of matching in some way. I think that was one of the first ones that I saw. But I was always like genuinely, like I have always followed things, celebrities like that. And I have always, I used to get really excited when I'd see these matches and I'd think, oh, isn't that so cute? Or, oh, but you know, what's happened is the more I live and the more experience I have being here alive, one of the things that I have come to see is just how much this idea of a fantasy comes into play. And so I actually do not have a whole lot of faith in Travis Kelce, depending on how you decide to pronounce it. That was a whole story there. So I just don't have. I used to be so excited. You know, I'm from the old original Bachelor and Bachelorette. Addicted people, you know, that was always my thing. So I think what is the importance here is, and the relevant message, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because so many of us do this. We see Taylor Swift, we see her with this guy, and it looks like this fairy tale thing, right? Or it looks like, whoa, like they might actually have it. I mean, even people I talked to, even my husband, I was telling him I was going to talk about this tonight, and I was even saying, like, yeah, I'm going to talk about this because it's been on my mind. I was going to do a thing on it because I just, I don't have a lot of faith in this. I'll tell you why, because when there is so much show and so much fantasy and so much buzz and all that, that just puts all this pressure on the fantasy. It puts so much pressure on this idea of two people. And that is a really hard thing when you're in that to compete with reality. And so the reality piece of it is that, and we don't see the behind the scenes, we don't see all that, but the fantasy is a number one relationship destroyer because it is not based in reality. So the more fantasy you see, the more fantasy you feel, okay? That is the red flag. The red flag. If it feels like you are on top of the world, if it feels so incredibly exciting, if it, and again, we don't know the behind the scenes, but very, very rarely do I have hopes for any of these that go like this, that start out like this, or that you see like this. And I know we only see a snippet, but I would love to see Taylor Swift happy with someone who was who really had her heart, who really was of the same heart. Ironically, and I didn't know this, but most of you know my dad passed away almost a year ago. And my mom, I didn't know this, but there was something where I was talking about Taylor Swift and Travis, and she was saying, she said, she said, Dad always used to pray every night for, he had her on his prayer list, and he was praying for Taylor Swift to find someone. And I thought that was so interesting, because he there was something there that obviously captured, his desire for someone for her to meet someone. He thought she was sweet. He thought she was just so real. And he saw something in there. And I was touched by the fact that my dad was like praying for her to find someone, because she was such a well-known celebrity that he'd heard of her too. But that's exactly it. Like, we all deserve to be happy, and we all deserve to have someone, no matter how famous or not famous we are. But the reality is that, there's just that every time the fantasy comes into play, and every time you're playing to a camera, you're playing to the idea of the fantasy, or when you have had, this is the thing that translates over, when you have had expectations on yourself placed on you by family members, by society, by your larger group of acquaintances, or larger extended family, or just by the culture, that you look like you should be a match with a certain type, or that you look like you would be the best match. Whenever anything is like based on more fantasy, the tendency to need to live up to that fantasy and the tendency to keep that fantasy going is just great. It is a really, really strong pull. And the more that you feel that, and the less that you're able to come back into reality, the harder it is to hang on to there. So, and to just hang on to that reality piece, and to hang on to that realness, where you're not caught up in the fantasy, because the fantasy plays out where you have expectations, where you feel like something should look a certain way. And then when it doesn't, or you hit a hiccup in the relationship, then you end up feeling like, where are you here? What is happening? And that's a problem. So bottom line, anytime there is something that is more of a fantasy-based thing, more of a fantasy-based relationship, more of a something that is more cutesy, or more like, oh, look at that, oh, they're such a cute couple, those just raise red flags, because more often they are performances, and we can end up performing to keep something going. I hope that does not happen here. I hope. But I just don't have a whole lot of faith in these types of very public, or just very cutesy type relationships, where it is so ripe for just being fantasy and not being based in reality. So we'll see what happens. But those are my thoughts on that. And it brings up, and the reason why I want to talk about it, because it really brings up the relevancy of just how often that fantasy comes up in our own relationships, and our own expectations, and our own thoughts and feelings about just how incredible this starts out being, and the cute little things. And then we just can get so caught up in that we miss the things that actually matter, the things that are the most important, which isn't whether or not you can wear matching clothes, or whether or not you can fit together and look like the perfect couple together. It is more about what goes on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, how well you communicate. Communication is essential. How well two people can be present and show up with individual identities, how much is not lost in a relationship. All of that is what matters. So those are my thoughts on that. Where I've been, I'll tell you where I've been. I have been doing a lot of individual coaching. I have not done this because I have been trying to figure out a way to make this more real and more conversational and have that feel to it. So we're coming in now, and we're starting with this. But my goal is for community for us, because I've been coaching a lot of the people. I've been coaching a lot of women through different phases in their lives. And there's a lot of women who've been with me for, wow, almost 10 years, some of them. And they've met their men. They have had kids, if that was a priority, or had fur babies or whatever. And they've had, so they've got essentially the love. They're in the places that they want to be. They've got that part of it. But what they don't have is community. What they still have is a sense of something is still missing. Maybe it's family of origin stuff that comes up. Maybe it's the fact that they're in the wrong career, the wrong work. And so that has come up. And so we're working on coaching through that type of thing. Maybe it's in-laws, maybe it's family, extended family, maybe it's friendships, maybe it's boundary setting, maybe it's all these different things. And so one of the things that is the common denominator, though, is community. And so what I am working on is how to bridge together the bridge between individual and that community, and with being basically all around the world, because those of you who have asked for this and are looking for this, you're in all corners of the world. You're everywhere. And so time differences are challenging and all kinds of things. And the recorded part is not the same. And so I am working on community and how to solve what if I can boil it down to one thing that is missing, it is community. I had a conversation with a single woman the other day, and what we were talking about was how the thing that she most wants a partner for is because she does not want to be alone. As she is alone, as she doesn't have someone, if she gets sick, if she's not feeling well, if she wants to have someone who is there for her. I think when you get sick or when you're not feeling well, it's just really when the struggle comes in, or if you're getting older, and I've had some of those, the issue of being alone really comes into play. And so what we were talking about is that instead of loneliness being the impetus to find someone, to find a partner, there's Coco in the background. If that is not the impetus for finding someone, and it is more of a genuine desire for equal, or as equal as you want it to be, but at least something where you're not on the begging end, and you're not settling because you are just worried about being alone, or you're just alone. Then our relationships just would be so much healthier if we could fill some of those roles with friends, with community. It comes down to, because again, friendships can be complicated. Family stuff can be very complicated, and there can be a lot of inherent expectations, or just selling your soul for some, just conditionality, right? You accept some help, and there's conditions attached to that. So the goal is, what I am just seeing everything comes down to is having a community of people who are there for you. And I just, making the world one, bringing everyone together under in one place. It's the idea of retreats. A lot of you go to retreats and you have these incredible insights when you're at the retreat, and you're right back. It only has a lasting effect that has a expiration time to it. It only lasts for so long. So how do we recreate that? That's has been keeping me up at night, trying to figure out how to recreate that, because the retreats, everything only lasts so long. And how do we create something different? I don't yet know. If any of you have any suggestions on that, or your feedback on that, I would love to hear from you. But that is what I am working on, is coming up with something that is different than what is already out there. And so that's where I'm at with that. Why is 2024 going to be your best year? Because of that. Because we are coming into a place where we are no longer just accepting what we have accepted in the past. And we are hungering for that community. And we are recognizing that all our needs cannot be met by one single person. And I feel like that is a realization that has such a positive, powerful effect. And that is my goal, so that the guy, the partner, is literally just the icing on the cake, and the entire cake is made up of a community of people that you can rely on, that that's based on equal relationships, that is based on not imbalances of power, that is genuine, where you don't have to worry about being backstabbed, that doesn't have the competition that most women have experienced, where so much is so competitive. I am seeing that there is a shift coming, and I do believe in that, because I am seeing this being talked about more and more. I am talking about it more and more with people who I would not normally even talk about it with. And so I just see that we are coming into a place where community and the ability to rely on each other and to get those needs met through each other, instead of just putting everything on one person, which is not fair to anyone, which is unrealistic, to have one person satisfy every single area of your life. So it is that I'm seeing real positive. I just see that as being such a positive thing. And that's why 2024, I have such high hopes for, because I feel like this realization of being in this together and not competing with each other so much, and not looking at each other as being that there's only so much of the good stuff to go around. And so that means if you might get it, there won't be some left for me. And just this idea that we are a threat to each other. I feel like we're coming slowly, but we're coming out of that, and we're coming to realize that we don't have to compete or fight over such limited men out there, or limited whatever it is that we're looking for. There's other ways to meet that need, and collectively it's a better way to do it. So those are my thoughts on that. So stay tuned. I'm coming up. Working on that, coming up with something there. And then let me get to the chats. Anne is asking, Jane, are things that could be red flags something to worry about if the other person is totally upfront about them? Okay, so I mean, I love upfrontness about red flags, about someone admitting their red flags, because they're giving you at least a warning, and there's an openness and an honesty about them. I mean, I do say, the best thing is to take whatever someone couldn't stand about you, those things someone hated about you, and take those things and wear them proudly in your next relationship, because that's going to serve you much better than hiding those. So if the other person is totally upfront about them, at least you're not going to be blindsided. Okay, so that's a good thing. But it does mean that you are going to have to be aware of them. It does mean that you are going to have to know that those red flags are things that are going to have an effect. They are going to come up. They are going to be something you need to know about. They are going to be potential roadblocks here. They are going to be things you're going to need to overcome. They're going to be obstacles that you need to work through. So what I would do is I would look at those red flags and honestly ask yourself, they're telling you about themselves. They're admitting openly that this is who I am. This is what I've got. So the question for you is, can I do something with that? Can I actually live with these things? Can I actually handle these things? If I'm in a situation with this person and this thing that they're saying that they do, is that a behavior something that you're okay with? Is that a deal breaker for you? So they're communicating all these things. They're telling you what the red flags are. Is it your red flag? Is it something that really bothers you? I think there's, I mean, I appreciate the honesty and the upfrontness. I'd much rather that. I'd much rather someone be upfront with you than blindside you, but that is something you have to figure out. Is that something that you can handle, that you can live with? Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. And we'll do this again. I've missed you guys, and I'm enjoying watching this. Having you here and seeing how everything unfolds with community and watching where that leads to. And if you're watching on the replay and you have questions, send in your questions. Email me if you're on my email list, or reach me on social media. You can post something in the community part here. I'm active on here on the community page. So yeah, if there's something that you've got for the next one, let me know and we'll cover it. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you all have a really good holiday season. Don't get caught up in the holidays. It's a time of year. It's a hallmark time of year. It has a feeling to it. There's as much sadness and yeah, just it can be a really, really hard time of the year. I want you to know that if this is not a holiday feeling time for you, you're not alone. This is a really rough time. I probably talk to more people around this time of year. December is one of my busier months just because of all the dynamics and all the feelings of I should feel this way. Well, no, you feel the way you feel, and you don't have to feel anyway. Again, it's easy to say we feel good when we're feeling great, right? And when we're not feeling good, it's harder to say that. So just whatever you're going through, whatever the holiday is, whatever loss you feel or whatever disappointment you feel, or you're allowed. Okay. You have permission to. So anyway, that's it for now. Have a good night. And and if you're interested in coaching, I offer email coaching. I offer regular phone, Zoom, online video coaching, whatever it is. I've got lots on my gettingtotruelove.com page. All right. You take care, and I will talk to you soon. Okay. We'll see you all. Bye.